by anyone or any practice. Rather, they have enjoyed and cherished their entire time in Wilgenhof.
And U.S. President Joe Biden has told the people of North Carolina that the nation has their back after he visited areas that Hurricane Helene has devastated. Hundreds of people are still missing, with search and rescue teams struggling to reach some remote areas. The death toll from the storm remains at 180. Biden says his government will provide as much help as it possibly can.
Today, I approve the request of Governor Cooper for the federal government to cover 100% of all the costs for debris removal, emergency protective measures for 6 months, all the costs. Does it really matter? This will pay for the urgent work we need to clear landslides, to provide shelters and supply food and medicine.
The top story at 1 o'clock, retired Chief Justice Raymond Zondo says the country's labor laws have evolved significantly. The Full Circle is up next. For SAFM News, Kimudupi Makhalemele.
The world's best football league makes its return to S3. Will Arsenal finally win their first title since 2004? Or will Man City continue their dominance of the league and win their 7th title under Pep Guardiola? Will the Dutchman in Erik ten Hag and Arne Slot have something to say as Man United and Liverpool step in to contest for the title? But it's not only about winning the title. For some of the 20 teams, it's a chance to improve on their performances from last season. While for others, it's the battle to avoid relegation and stay in the top flight. Every team has a point to prove. This is not just football. This is a masterpiece being played out every weekend. Channel your best sport with the English Premier League. Saturdays at 3 p.m. on S3. Open up. S3.
Mubango returns for an explosive new season on SABC2. A renaissance of new beginnings, intrigue, and drama with old enemies and new characters. Catch the rebirth season of Mubango every Monday to Friday at 9 p.m. on SABC2 or stream it on SABC Plus. Mubango, Ukovela Panda. SABC2.
Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
Distant planet is pulling me away from you. It is DJ Clock featuring Beatenberg on this one with Pluto. That is how we kick off the show today. In fact, I think we were talking about it 2 weeks ago that Beatenberg have released some new music that's out. They released beginning of the year, if memory serves correct from our discussions. Could be beginning of the year or extremely late last year, or a case of the lead single releasing extremely late last year and then the full-length album releasing beginning of the year. I hope you are having a good day. It's a beautiful day outside, so it is a beautiful day to have a great day, and I hope you are doing exactly that in whichever corner of the country you are at. I don't know if it's a good or bad thing whenever we get sort of these preemptive warnings from the SA weather, and then it just doesn't happen, because I've been anticipating this sort of the effects of the extreme drop in temperatures in the KZN that were anticipated to hit the first part of this week. And then I definitely thought we would feel the cold here, because whenever one part of the country is affected by adverse weather, no doubt the rest of the country also feels all the symptoms. But we really haven't felt very much, except for a chill in the mornings that then goes away once the sun is up and high in the sky. So that's a good thing. Still enjoying a beautiful day and enjoying summer weather on our side. We've got lots of show coming up on this International Day of No Alcohol Drinking. If you enjoy your alcoholic beverage, today is the International Day of No Alcohol. We rank somewhere in the top 10. If memory serves correct. We had this conversation last year or earlier in the year. We rank in the top 10 of the world's best drinkers. I use the term best drinker. It's not anything for us to be proud of, but we do rank very high in the world's drinking list. So today is no drinking day, and I hope if you do have a beverage, that maybe today you don't have a beverage. Let's see how it goes. It's also October, so what a nice time for you to actually observe October and no drinking. On the show, and as far as what's coming up on the agenda, we're looking at the destruction of libraries and archives, and we'll find out more from our guest Ishmael Lahadin around. This was a writer and a columnist. Around what all this means, right? Is the burning and erasing of history and memory somewhat intentional? Is it a cause for concern? And what does this mean for possibly also just archiving our histories and our stories as a people? Stages, pages, screens, and more is also coming up in this first hour of the show. And then on the other side of 2 o'clock, because it is a Thursday, we're going to delve into some legal matters after 2, and I'll tell you what exactly those are closer to the time. 086 000 2032 is the number that you can call us on, and 061 410 4107 is our WhatsApp line. You can no doubt partake in our conversations and also maybe affirm whether or not you will be observing October, this October, going 30 days with no alcohol, or any of the other conversations that we have during the course of the day. You are most welcome to share your perspective and your opinion. 061 410 4107.
Weeknights on S3 are anything but ordinary. BBC Primetime brings you the best of British television from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. You love drama? Then step into the world of Luther as he cracks down on criminals terrorizing the streets of London Monday to Wednesdays at 9 p.m. Top Gear will have you falling in love and rolling in laughter as Jeremy Clarkson and his team take you on an automotive journey like no other, Monday to Wednesdays at 10 p.m. Channel your best entertainment with BBC Primetime, only on S3. Open up. S3.
Mubango returns for an explosive new season on SABC2. A renaissance of new beginnings, intrigue, and drama with old enemies and new characters. Catch the rebirth season of Mubango every Monday to Friday at 9 p.m. on SABC2 or stream it on SABC Plus. Mubango, ukovela panda. SABC2.
Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
Today is also the International Day of Non-Violence, by the way, and 3 of South Africa's cities stay firmly on the list of the world's most violent cities in the world, with Cape Town ranking in the 11th place, so just one spot shy of making it into the top 10. The 11th place, Nelson Mandela Bay and Durban ranking 46th and 47th, respectively, on that list of the most violent cities in the world on this International Day of Nonviolence. And I wonder, from your sort of perspective and from your glimpse of your community and the broader South African society at large, what do you think it is that is, causing us to just consistently be in this state of violence as a country? And also, what should we be doing? Lists aside, world lists and all the rest of it aside, just what should we be doing as individuals and community in order to curb this rise and curb this momentum of having this very violent society? We'd love to know your perspective. 061-410-4107-086-000-2032. Right now, though, we're getting into a conversation with writer, columnist, and political economist Ishmael Lagadine, and we're talking around the destruction of libraries. And in a piece in the Daily Maverick, he writes, the destruction of libraries and archives is not just a physical loss, but a profound erasure of history and memory. And I think that perhaps is where we jump in today. How are you doing, Ishmael? You good?
I'm doing very well. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for allowing us the time. We appreciate it. I mean, I guess it's a very bold statement, right? That causes one to stop and think. The destruction of libraries and archives, not just being a physical loss, but being a profound erasure of history and memory.
It is. The thing is, I need to just say that I'm not conspiratorial, but when you decide one history is more important than another history, and one set of records is more important than another set of records, you necessarily traduce or you make someone's history less important. So, we know that our past was very iniquitous, violent, and dangerous and destructive. But it's ironic that we have all those records. We have British and Dutch colonial records. We have apartheid era records. But in the democratic era, the last 30 years, there have been a gradual breakdown of record keeping. Let's say a woman in Koffenwaba gets a house or a piece of land. There's a title deed that comes with it. There are paperwork that come with it. And if those papers and records aren't kept, and if they aren't recorded and protected and put in libraries and archives, the woman's house, there's no record of it. And what do you do? What do her children do? What do their grandchildren do? So it's that kind of thing. And so the Johannesburg Library's decline is emblematic of that, because it doesn't just hold the artworks and the papers and the maps of our history. In the past 30 years, it's also become what should have become a repository of our stories of the democratic era. And that is what we're missing. For example, artworks that are on display, the art exhibitions have been recorded in and around Johannesburg, and those are documented and recorded in the Johannesburg Library. But one of the things that I found is that around the country, it is really in a bad state. There are some provinces where there is just no legislation for it, and there are no insufficiently kept archives and libraries, and that is a very bad situation for our future and for the present, because you're actually saying, do you remember our times in the early 2000s when there was optimism, when there was hope? But all that's gone because we haven't kept records of it. So people's memories are being broken and being shattered, and this is the problem that I try to address.
From a symbolic perspective, what is the symbolism of the decay, and does the the collapse of of institutions like Johannesburg Library carry, I don't know, perhaps carry a stain for South Africa?
Well, yes, you can. The thing is, one of the things that I've wrestled with in my columns, especially in the Daily Maverick, is not, I'm not saying white people are bad. I'm not saying colored people are bad. I'm not saying Xhosa people are bad. I'm saying a good conversation can be had when we start with honesty, when we start with integrity. So the point then I make a leap to, yes, the Johannesburg Library, much like the Union Building, the physical structures, were built by colonialists, were designed by colonialists. So let us accept that, but let us discuss it and let us find a way of moving forward, not just say, in a populist term, oh no, that's a white man's building, oh, that's a colonialist building, so we shouldn't care about it. So this is the honesty and integrity that I always talk about. So yes, the Johannesburg Library was, designed and built during the colonial era, during the apartheid era, maintained. But what do we do with the information that it holds? What do we do with the memories, our memories that are embedded into that? There was a story, I'm going to tell the story, but I can't give you the details because I haven't discussed it with the person and I can't share her information. There was a woman, a Xhosa woman from Eastern Cape, who came to who in the Cape Town archives found documents of her family heritage going back, a couple hundred years, and she was thrilled by that. So, do we say to this woman from the Eastern Cape, sorry, your records don't matter because it was kept by the colonialists? So that's a kind of willful destruction. Now, we have to acknowledge our past. Our past was profoundly unjust, but you can't read against the grain. You can't say, so, if the records are, let's say, of Soweto riots in 76 or in the mid-80s, the apartheid documents might say troops went in to attack stone-throwing youths. Those are the facts as written by the apartheid regime. But we can also say, oh, our youth actually fought back. So do you see what I mean? We can read against the grain. So it gives us insight into our past and how to prepare for the future.
And I mean, everything you say here speaks to cause and effect, and also it speaks to maybe questioning the purpose in this erasure and the purpose in controlling these historical narratives.
Again, I go back to I'm not conspiratorial, but the purpose, if the purpose is, if I said to you, your history and your records should be kept and protected, but your neighbor's records, we just don't care about it. So, and we then fund the protection of your records and we don't fund the protection of your neighbor's records, you automatically assume that your neighbor's records are less important.
Yeah.
But what has generally happened, and we've been going on about this for most of the past 20 years, many of our public institutions have, but for various reasons, failed or collapsed. And one of them, we look at Eskom, we look at South African Airways, we look at PRASA, but we must also look at the libraries and archives, because those things are also important, because it doesn't affect one of us, because I can, because PRASA doesn't provide me a train and I must fight for PRASA, doesn't mean I shouldn't fight for better libraries, better archives, death certificates, marriage certificates, trade, title deeds, school education systems, what policies. So we need records of all of that to tell us what we've done, what we've achieved, and to hold people accountable. Let's just pick let me pick you or me. Let's say I'm Minister of Education, and in 10 years, 20 years from now, someone says, let's see what Ismail did wrong or right 20 years ago, but there's no record of it. This Lahadin guy just got away with things. Why? Because there are no records of the mistakes I made. There are no records of the corruption. There are no records of the things I stole. There are no records. So that's the problem. We can't hold people accountable. We don't have transparency. those records. Of course, there's the historical stuff. The three eras: the colonial era, the apartheid era, and the democratic era. The sad thing, it's very unfortunate, is that the colonial records were impeccable. I've been looking at colonial administrators and record keepers in Asia, and then it's quite profound the amount of detail these people went into. Then there's the apartheid era records. They were also quite detailed and specific, although they were terribly biased. But the records are there, and we can read against the grain. And then in the democratic era, we have so many things have gone wrong in so many areas. And one of the areas that I focused on here is precisely the libraries and archives.
And as you're talking, Ishmael, I think the irony for me in sort of the piece that you've written is also understanding that in our very short history of President Thabo Mbeki, who was so passionate about the Timbuktu manuscripts and the preservations of those manuscripts, and yet here we are basically allowing the same kind of destruction, deterioration of our very own records, our very own histories.
Yeah, and that is, my skin's crawling at the moment. I'm sorry. But the thing is, that's the difference that I make. I said, we know that I didn't reference it Timbuktu, but there's the thing about actual burning of books and burning and physical destruction of places like Timbuktu. And then allowing it to deteriorate, which you're not putting a match to the Johannesburg Library or Mpumalanga archives. You're not putting a match to it, but you're allowing it to deteriorate. So Thabo Mbeki was absolutely right, and I'm not saying he should. I'm not telling him what to do, but we need that kind of energy in South Africa as well. Let us try to find ways to improve our record keeping, and to make sure that it's too late for me. But anyway, my children or your children have records to look back. Sorry.
It's not too late for you. And maybe that's when the records would even matter the most, in fact. Let's take a quick pause here for the headline news. We'll come back on the other side of this, but our lines of communications are open if you want to weigh in on the conversation. 086 000 2032 061 410 4107 is our WhatsApp line. As you listen, do you also perhaps, if we are putting conspiracy theories at play, from your perspective as a listener, do you think there's maybe a very deliberate and conscious move to neglect, our libraries and institutions and leave them to decay? Places like the Johannesburg Library that hold so much of our collective records and histories and archives and stories. Or do you think perhaps it's just a situation where they're just not a priority at the moment, but maybe better focus or something better can be done in the near future just to ensure the preservation of these institutions? It's just gone 1:30. Madupi standing by with the headline news.
Thank you very much, Sister Bridge, and a very good afternoon. In your headlines at 1:30, there's been a decrease in the representation of women in South Africa's National Assembly in the 7th administration. Retired Chief Justice Raymond Zondo says the country's labor laws have evolved significantly, and the Israeli military says it has killed about 15 Hezbollah fighters in an airstrike on a building in Bint Jubail in southern Lebanon. Those are your headlines. A full news update coming up at 2.
Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
Our line is open. 086 000 2032 is where you can call us if you have an opinion or perspective to share on our conversation with Ishmael Lagadeen, who's a writer and columnist, and of course that piece out in the Daily Maverick. Let's talk about the impact on future generations and the consequences that this destruction of historical records is ultimately going to have on their ability to learn from the past, their ability to hold institutions to account, but even just as simple things as you mentioned, the story of the lady, their ability to track their own history.
Yes, that's very important, because there's a lot of research and curiosity has been going on about genetic origins and genealogy and stuff like that. I don't want to comment on that specifically, because that's become like an industry and very misleading, and it's all sort of consumerized. But there is a rise in people wanting to know their pasts and where they're from and their origins and the movement of people around the world. So, this is not just a curiosity in the West or curiosity in Europe. We as Africans, we're also interested in our histories, in our pasts, because one of my favorite parts of the country is up in Toyandu, and there's such a rich cultural history in that area that I just haven't been in a while, so I shouldn't pretend. I just love going there, because the people have such pride and in their history and their background and their origins. And then I also, go from Punu to, I go to Eastern Cape, and there's such great histories and stories, but we have to rely on colonial stories. We have to rely on apartheid era stories. And what have we done in the past 30 years? Now, I'm not saying no work has gone into it. I'm just saying this is as important for us today as it is. We shouldn't worry about today. One of the things about public policy and about whatever we write today, it's not about you and me, Bridget. It's about 2 generations from now. What country do we want to leave for people? That's what we should focus on constantly. What country do we want to leave for people? Because in 20, 30 years' time, I might not be around, but that doesn't mean I don't care.
Yeah.
That's what we should be doing.
Absolutely. Some of our listeners were sending through some questions. We're just trying to reconnect our WhatsApp. One says, in a digital age, do we think that there's still a need to preserve physical books and archives, or should we just focus on digital records instead?
I think that is, such a good question. One of the problems we have, so the answer is yes, we should keep records. But one of the problems is you can find written words and texts in books that are 200 or 300 years old. But digital records that were stored on CDs 10, 20 years ago, we have to upgrade technology to read them. So how do you preserve that? So the thing is, do we wait for, do we follow, or do we lead technological inventions and technological progress? So I have a digital copy of, let's say, my ID, my birth certificate.
Yeah. So
it's a digital copy today. What type of technology are we going to need 20 years from now to read that PDF document? So that's kind of the thinking that we have to go, because we don't have CDs anymore.
Yeah.
We don't have CD-ROMs anymore. But what you do have is, and I'm not a Luddite. I really love technology, but you still have books in libraries from 300 years ago or 200 years ago that you can go back to. So how do we make it possible? So it's a question of technology. It's a question of science. And unfortunately, it's a question of heavy investment.
Absolutely.
A book is cheaper than a computer, frankly.
Absolutely. Let's go to WhatsApp on 061-410-4107.
Good day. I just wish to add my experience with the archives in Pietermaritzburg. I think the people that are being employed don't really have history or a librarian passion or of history. I think they're just doing the job. So I was asked to just go have a look at the pile of documents to find what I wanted. And following that, I went via an attorney to get a diagnosis of someone that passed away in 1991, which is pretty recent. And it's now the 6th month gone, and I haven't been able to receive that document. So I think the people that are being employed are not really interested in keeping history and observing any kind of historic significance to anything. So I'm not sure if they value their own history. So that's just my experience. Thank you.
Hi Bridget, my name is Mpumi. I'm in Mbombela in Mpumalanga, and what an interesting topic. I haven't visited our local library in a while because of the state in which our libraries are at. And about 2 years ago, I was in Stuttgart in Germany, and I visited the state library there. I mean, state of the art. The library is alive, it's inviting, and they've somehow incorporated technology. There was different levels of the library, and there were, digital sections and multimedia sections. But the state, I mean, I spent 2 hours there and wished I could have spent more time. So the state of our library, maybe if our libraries could be more inviting and, adapted to whatever demands we have right now in terms of technology and accessibility, they would become alive and not these white elephants or neglected areas that are not maintained. Oh man, I don't know what the purpose of my voice note is, but I just wanted to contribute to this conversation. Thank you.
Pumi, it's the caveat at the end for me, but a point taken, because I think both voice notes speak to observations that speak to the essence of our conversation from two different perspectives.
Yeah, Pumi makes such a good point. Libraries, and we don't want to keep referring to the West, but there's a Chicago library or the library in Berlin. There are places you want to go into and you never want to leave. And I tried academia and I failed, but it was always my idea to be able to walk into a library and never walk out again. And so Pumi's point is so good, although it's kind of it's kind of philosophical. But yes, so that's a good point she makes there, and it's also about the sadness. The previous caller from KZN makes a point that I didn't explore too much in the article. One point is we have to be. Library science is not one of the big attractions, or doesn't get very many applications for universities. So. Because you have to love books, you have to believe in record keeping, you have to actually like libraries. So it's not a career path that people choose. Unfortunately, people choose career paths. You go and study because you want to get a job. You want to get a job because you want to earn a lot of money. You want a lot of money because you want to buy material things, which is all fine, But library science asks different questions of you. It says, if you're interested in keeping records in the future of our country and you love the smell of books and all that, then you apply for library science. But what has happened in so many cases, and again, I'm not going to, we can't share people's names, but you get someone who's employed, who's a technologist in new media and public and broadcasting, and gaining very, very valuable technological experience. But then this person decides, actually, I must get a job in public service because I can get a good salary, I can get a job for life. He has no experience of public service, he has no experience of public administration, but he knows that he'll have a job for life. So then he leaves his job as a technologist, as a sound engineer, as a digital, to go and join the government. And then in government he becomes a common administrator, and that's it. For the next 10 years, he's going to do the next 10 things every day, and then in 10 years he'll have experience. So it's a loss for him, but the interest is he's secured of a job security. So there's very many things that play in this. So government has to make it more attractive for people to go into things like library science and archival and build libraries that Pumi refers to, and that the caller from KZN refers to. We must we must enjoy going into libraries. And that's one of the things that I'd like to say.
Ishmael, we have to wrap it there for today, but thank you very much for sharing your thoughts with us, definitely giving us something to ponder on as South Africans, just moving into, this GNU in the next couple of decades, and having to grapple with conversations that perhaps some people might think are of little importance, but in actual fact hold very much importance for all of us as South Africans. That was writer Ishmael Lagadin, who is a columnist and political economist. And of course, that piece is out in the Daily Maverick if you want to cast your eyes on it. It's just gone 2 o'clock. Let's pause here quickly for a quick break, and then we'll come back on the other side of this.
Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Myths versus facts. I'm too young to get breast cancer. Many women under age 40 are diagnosed with breast cancer. Men can't get breast cancer. 1 in 922 men have a lifetime risk of breast cancer. I have never had children and can therefore not get breast cancer. Women who haven't had children or only had them after 30 have an increased risk of breast cancer. Breast Cancer Awareness Month on SAFM.
Well, congratulations to the lucky winners who have walked away with their share of 50,000 Rand from One Life. You still have one more chance to win 15,000 Rand tomorrow on SAFM, and all you have to do is enter online and you could be a lucky winner to get a call to play on the morning brief. Plus, you can also boost your 15,000 Rand winnings with an additional 2,000 Rand when you opt in for an obligation-free One Life life cover quote. One Life is a licensed FSP, and of course, T's and C's do apply. One Life, changing lives.
Stages, pages, screens, and more on The Full Circle.
It is the Full Circle with myself, Bridget Masinga, on SAFM, and we are talking all things now. Fagugesi, the African Digital Innovation Festival, the 2024 edition of the festival with Lodi Matsamela, I am told. How are you doing this afternoon, Lodi? You good?
Yes, thank you. It's Matitela.
Matitela, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Lodi. Let's get into the festival, Fagugesi Festival. You guys are returning again. This is now which edition of the festival are we at? Lodi?
11 years. Can you hear me?
Now I can. There we go.
Okay.
11 years later. So over a decade of Fagugesi now. Let's reflect on the last 10, 11 years of the festival and, of course, some of the gains that you've seen over the time.
So the festival initially started, as you can imagine, quite small, a digital arts festival in 2024, like 2013, 2014. And it was initially started by a group of very forward-thinking academics from Wits University, because Fagugesi is actually very much part of the Wits University family. It's actually known as Wits Incubator, and the whole objective of not just the festival, but the space in which the festival exists, which is Tsimologong Precinct, which is a digital innovation hub, was to try and close the gap with regards to skills and training for individuals that might not have access to education that will allow them to participate in what is, we used to say the future, but it is now, in the now, in an AI world, in a technological world, in a digital world. And so in order to be able to participate, everybody needs to have access to those skills. And really that was the point of the hub itself. And the festival is meant to celebrate the creative digital works created by not just South African, but African practitioners across the continent.
Wonderful. And I know that I read somewhere that the festival is built on, and I'm quoting here, built on the belief that successful technological innovation in Africa must be deeply rooted in the continent's cultural practices and creative expressions. Expand that thinking for us a little bit.
It's exactly that. And I'll use an example. We have in this year's, one of the showcases this year, what we call Dala Corner. It's an arcade, but it is only, it has only housing South African or African-made games. So for gamers, and there are a lot of gamers, if you came into a space where you were able to play a game about a runaway taxi that's causing havoc in downtown Joburg, and because this is the world that you live in, and suddenly the context is a world that you're familiar with. It's not some gangster in downtown LA. It's not some whatever the iterations of the tropes as well. I mean, gaming can be problematic, but I'm just saying what we normally see, right? So imagine that there is something really, really amazing in being recognized in the media that we consume, in being reflected in the games that you play. I mean, those that have young children, people who are trying to curate what their children watch, literally seek out animations that reflect the color of their children's skin, the texture of their children's hair. And that can't happen if that work isn't being created. And so that's what Fagugesi is about. It's where are those animators that are doing, telling stories about a little black girl or little black boy or an older black girl, an older black boy. These are the people that we're trying to accelerate their careers. That's what Fagugesi needs, to accelerate the digital arts, basically.
Yeah, and it's of interest to me, Lodi, that we're seeing an expansion of sort of this engagement around digitization, right, and innovation in the space of content, in the space of gaming, in the space of animation. Just thinking that just a few days ago we were talking to Nick from Africa Games Week, who's also mobilizing on a similar note. And I wonder, is the sector moving as a collective from its many different angles and players and perspectives in order to really just magnify what is going on in the space in the context of South Africa, but also highlight the potential opportunities there, whether it's academic and professional opportunities there, expanding that sort of exploration to a broader market, for instance? Because then I'm wondering, we have Africa Games Week on the one side, we have Fagugesi on the other side, which essentially speak to the same thing happening more or less at the same time. And are you guys pulling together the resources as well to maximize on audiences, to maximize on attraction, to build something even bigger, an even bigger movement within South African borders?
Well, yes, because Africa Games Week, their mini festival is happening at Fagugesi. So this morning they had our main venue and they were hosting plenaries on gaming in South Africa, and we work very closely with them. We work very closely with everybody. So we're not like, Fagugesi is not like maybe a licensed festival that comes here and takes over Gallagher Estate or Sandton Convention Center, and then it sort of emulates an American version of itself. We are explicitly African. We are explicitly about growing the sector in all ways. And so I come from the digital content hub at Timlokong Precinct, which deals with content. But my counterparts are working in tech and are working in enterprise development for enterprises that are in tech or the digital arts. So no, we work with everybody. There's no way we could do it. In fact, there's another activation happening here, and the way we were able to pull this activation together was resources, not money. It was efforts and resources, and there's no other way to do it if we don't have, or if we're not holding hands and supporting each other and splitting whatever we have in order to achieve the same objectives. So no, our objective at Fagugesi as well as Timlokong Precinct is to work with everyone. We are invested. In fact, because we do a lot of training and incubation, the people that come to us should not stay. They should actually fly and flourish and soar and go beyond what we can offer here, because they're the ones that are going to grow the industry. All we're trying to do is enable them to be people that participate and can grow the sector. So no, there's no other way. There's no other way but together.
Love to hear it. So it is on the theme for this year, Until Unlocked, and it's happening...
Until Unlocked.
And until is infinite. And it's happening until the 5th. You guys kicked off yesterday and you're running throughout the course of the weekend. Give us a little snapshot as well for those that might be interested, of all ages, that might want to come through. Just some of the things of highlight on the agenda that are absolutely not to be missed over the next couple of days.
So we've got showcases. We've got the arcade corner, Dala corner, that has the African games that you can demo there. We have an AI bot that is basically been the data sets that it uses are the data sets of artists and creatives, and so it only works as a creative collaborator. It's called Shamir, but it is also being exhibited with Creative Hub from Morija in Lesotho, and they're also here to basically just demonstrate what you can do with a bot that is, I guess, constructed differently with a different set of data sets. So it's not typical, it's not a chat GPT.
Yeah.
We've also got Usurper by Kokota Ribane, who is one of the Ribane siblings that had exhibited at Latitudes. We've got Electric South, which is also one of the organizations that's working in the digital arts, and they've got an XR with their expo stand, and XR meaning immersive, like the headsets type of works that people can engage with. We also facilitated some animations for queer artists, and so we've called it Queer Catalysts, and we've got the animations in its volume 2, so we're exhibiting their animations in one of our sites here. And so we've got quite a bit for people to just come. They can buy a day ticket and come and just engage in those. And then Saturday, we've got a program in the morning for families. So bring your kids, come and experience. So we've got master classes for animation for kids. I know it sounds like no kid is going to sit there and actually pay attention, but you are actually shocked how the 7-year-olds and upwards are enamored with, I can create my own animations.
Absolutely. Lodi, we have to leave it there, unfortunately, for this afternoon. But thank you so much. It sounds like a great itinerary. That was Lodi Matsitela, and she's the program manager at Faguke's African Digital Innovation Festival. Let's take a quick pause and then we come back.
Weeknights on S3 are anything but ordinary. BBC Primetime brings you the best of British television from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. You love drama? Then step into the world of Luther as he cracks down on criminals terrorizing the streets of London Monday to Wednesdays at 9 p.m. Top Gear will have you falling in love and rolling in laughter as Jeremy Clarkson and his team take you on an automotive journey like no other, Monday to Wednesdays at 10 p.m. Channel your best entertainment with BBC Primetime, only on S3. Open up.
S3. Masanda Wana ladies want to rubber stamp their authority with maximum points to stay on the summit. But Copper Belt ladies want to fight with all they have to move away from the bottom half. This is the Hollywood Bet Super League. Witness the Mzansi Queens of the beautiful game. Mamelodi Sundowns Ladies FC versus Copperbelt Ladies FC on Saturday, 5 October at 11 a.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available everywhere for everyone, always on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga. Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m.
All right, we're running through these stages, pages, screens and more quite quickly. We're looking at the 7th edition of the Africa Human Rights Film Festival that's returning to Cape Town. Davison Mudzingwa joins us now, who's the festival manager. How are you doing, Davison? You good?
I'm great. I hope you're good too.
Awesome, thank you. So it's the 7th edition of the Africa Human Rights Film Festival, and it's kicking off tomorrow for 2 days. Tell us a bit about the festival.
So the Africa Human Rights Film Festival is returning to Cape Town for its 7th edition, and this year we are screening an array of films that really showcase or portray issues of human rights in their diversity across Africa and also the world. But primarily, we are focusing more on the issues of environment and climate justice. As we know, currently, these are the topical issues around the world, and the human rights attached to it as big countries are negotiating transition, what they call the just transition.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, also this year you opened out in the Kalahari Desert, and in fact you invited a lot of the indigenous Khoi and San communities to come through and participate in some of the discussions as well as the workshops.
The Kalahari is, if you can say that, our spiritual home. It's the kind of marginalized area that we've been reporting for the last 7 years. Screening films annually and also training young people there, because it's a marginalized community and their issues have only been told through the scope of veneer of outsiders. So what really gave us the passion was, let's train them, let them make their own films, and now that they've made these short films, we're taking them to different cities so that their stories can be heard as seen through their own lens.
Absolutely. And I wonder, the tie-in with this year's focus being on environmental and climate issues, obviously then bringing in communities from the Khoi and the San, probably some interesting perspectives being told that answer and speak to this theme as well. They are the original peoples of the earth, and their engagement and connection to the environment is one that's of utmost importance.
It is crucial because they are the most affected, but they have the best wisdom in terms of conserving the environment. So when we bring them into the discourse, we are basically saying, here's what's affecting the most marginalized, but what can we learn from them as they possess the most important wisdom? And what we also did is that we are operating organizations that represent the First Nation, the Khoi and San communities, that will be coming over the 2 days to have panel discussions from 3 p.m. each day on issues affecting all the grassroots levels within the Western Cape and also for those that are coming from the Northern Cape.
Wonderful. So it's 2 days, 4th and the 5th. I mean, 2 days seems like it's not even enough for the Africa Human Rights Film Festival. And I know you've got quite a few films that are lined up to be showcased, and we don't have time to go through all of them. But as a parting shot, for those who will be in Cape Town or are in Cape Town and looking to go see what's on the agenda, where can they go in order to secure themselves a ticket to be part of the viewings?
The best part of it is that watching these films is free. So we invite everyone who's in Cape Town to come to the Better House that is along the main street in Mowbray from 1 p.m. every day until 6 p.m. We are screening films and also panel discussion. If you are in Kailisha and surrounding communities, we are starting the program from 11:30 each day, and we end the program at 6 as well. So it's screenings and discussions and getting to meet people, networking and workshops.
Lovely stuff. Davison, we appreciate the time with you this afternoon. And of course, he is the festival manager for the Africa Human Rights Film Festival. 2 o'clock on the dot. Madupi standing by.
Thank you very much, Sister Bridge. The top stories this hour: the representation of women in Parliament drops, and 3 extortion suspects killed in KZN shootouts. A very good afternoon. There's been a decrease in the representation of women in South Africa's National Assembly in the 7th administration. This was lamented by Susan Tolmay of Genderlinks, one of the speakers at the IEC's dialogue on the role of women in leadership in the last 30 years, taking place on Gauteng's East Rand. Tolmay says the drop from 46 to 43% of women representatives from the 2019 elections to 2024 runs contrary to the constitutional goal of gender equity and erodes women's voices in development.
Two of our political parties, the ANC and the EFF, have actually implemented quotas within their constitutions or within their manifestos, and both of them respected this. And as a result, ANC exceeded equity, and the EFF, they also achieved the 50% mark. And we can see that if parties don't improve their performance, we do see backsliding. We saw the backsliding because the ANC lost seats to more conservative parties like the MK and the DA.
Retired Chief Justice Raymond Zondo says the country's labour laws have evolved significantly. He delivered the keynote address at the Stellenbosch University's Labour Law Colloquium. This year's colloquium is held in honour of Zondo's contributions as well as those of Professor Halton Cheadle. Zondo's speech was themed, "The right not to be unfairly dismissed." He says this has its origins in the precursor to the labour laws, the Industrial Court.
The Industrial Court was given the function of adjudicating labour disputes, and in this connection it had very little to guide it in order to build jurisprudence for our labour law. It had to work with an open-ended definition of an unfair labour practice and build jurisprudence over a long period of time.
3 suspects are wanted in connection with a string of extortion and murder cases in the eThekwini district have been shot and fatally wounded in 2 separate incidents in shootout with the police in KZN. The first suspect was wanted for at least 4 cases of extortion and another 4 counts of murder. He was shot and killed by police in Inanda. In the second incident, 2 suspects died in a shootout with the police in Ichelimnyama in Marion Hill. Police spokesperson Robert Natsiunda.
He was found in possession of a 7.65 pistol with 4 rounds of ammunition. In another incident, police operationalized intelligence which uncovered the hideout spot of 2 suspects who were also wanted for extortion and murder cases. The suspects were cornered at a Dabe informal settlement in Jelimnyam and Marian Hill, and suspects shot at the police from inside the house. The police returned fire, and during the shootout, 2 suspects were shot and fatally wounded. They were found in possession of 2 firearms. All recovered firearms will be taken for ballistic testing to ascertain if they are linked to any other crime scenes.
Gospel artist Winnie Mashaba says she owes her successful music career to the late Soli Molokwane, popularly known as Soli Moholo. Molokwane passed away in hospital yesterday at the age of 65 after suffering a stroke in August while on tour in Botswana. The award-winning Mkuku singer became a household name in the early 2000s with over 20 albums. Mashaba says Soli Moholo took her under his wing when she started in the industry.
Mr. Soli Moholo played a very huge role in my life because I still believe if he didn't welcome me in the music industry, I wouldn't be where I am now. I'm 26 years in the music industry. Last year we were celebrating, he was congratulating me. In fact, he was a cheerleader of Winnie Mashaba in the music industry. So proud to say I'm his product.
And the Israeli military says it has killed about 15 Hezbollah fighters in an airstrike on a building in Bint Jubail in southern Lebanon. The IDF says it hit a municipal building in which Hezbollah was operating alongside a large number of weapons stored there. The BBC's Yolanda Nell has more.
We've just had an update now from the Israeli military about the latest attacks that it's been carrying out inside Lebanon. It's saying that it's hit about 200 targets associated with Hezbollah, talking about how one council building was hit in southern Lebanon where it says about 15 Hezbollah operatives were killed and that weapons were stored there. That's its claim. On the ground, it claims to have killed Hezbollah fighters with exchanges of fire. This after we had the news that 8 Israeli soldiers had been killed in an ambush.
The top story at 2 o'clock, there's been a decrease in the representation of women in South Africa's National Assembly in the 7th administration. The Full Circle continues. For SAFM News, Kemudupi Makhalemeli.
The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga, Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m.
It is a favorite song, Omu Sangare, coming through with Kamalemba. You know, I've been looking for this song on my playlist probably for well over a week now, and I kept on spelling it wrong. I know I kept on spelling it Kalalemba instead of Kalalememba. Yes, I know. I'm not Malian after all, but she is a favorite, and she's of a Fulani descent, by the way, often referred to as the songbird of Wasulu, which is, of course, the native tongue in that part of the world. And she just does incredible music. So if you're into the likes of Fatu, then you'll definitely be into the likes of Omu Sangare. Last I checked, she was also very much living in Europe somewhere, but still rooted or going between both the continent as well as Europe and doing her thing there. Wonderful, wonderful musician. It's just gone 10 past 2 o'clock on the Full Circle with myself, Bridget Masinga, on this International Day of No Violence, International Boyfriend's Day, International Day of No Alcohol. This day is a day of many things. So pick your flavor, and it definitely ticks one of the boxes. Right now, though, we're going to be catching up with Somila Gogoba, who is a department manager at My Law Legal. And according to a recent report by analytics company 8020, South Africans face an alarming financial reality. The country's debt-to-income ratio is a shocking 54%. And for middle-class workers, that number jumps to 56%. Even the wealthiest, that are known as the heavy hitters, carry an astounding 63% debt-to-income ratio. And so we thought we'd have this conversation around a whole host of things. You know, what does this mean? How do we go about avoiding taking on new debt? What do we do when you are in debt? Is ignoring debt an option? Maybe not. And everything else that comes with a conversation around all things debt. We've got Somila joining us on the line. How are you doing today? Somila?
Hi, hello.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Great, thank you. Cannot complain at all. We had a petrol decrease a couple of weeks ago. We're having another one that comes into effect today, if I'm not mistaken, came into effect today. We had a little 25-point basis decrease last week. Didn't make much of a difference, but it's there. Some people see all this as maybe relief, but considering what we just said about the fact that 54% of the country carries a debt-to-income rate. Well, a debt-to-income ratio is around 54% in the country. So these things are good, headed in the right direction, but it doesn't mean that we've left debt in our rearview mirror.
100%. So we are currently getting a breather. That's the only thing this whole thing means. It's like now it's at least nothing is going up. For the past couple of months, all we're hearing is interest rate going up, repo rate going higher, cost of living is higher. So and that's why we're at those percentages that you just mentioned now. We're currently at a position in South Africa where debt has taken over just your income, right? You just literally said now everything is above 50% when it comes to debt to income ratio. So now with the interest rate dropping and the petrol dropping, there is a certain level of a breather that South Africans can have. But then again, it's not for them to splurge. It's just for them to tighten their debts, close or finish off ones that they are able to finish in this period of time. Because, if you were spending like 300 within your petrol, now you will be spending like 250. There's that 50 rand you are able to save. Instead of splurging on that 50 rand, put it aside to a debt that you know that you need to actually finish up. So by the time they literally say interest rate is back to it went higher to how it was, you are less debt than when you were when we had this breather.
I like that strategy, Sumila, because as you say, it is a breather, but it's a breather that we must use very intentionally and very purposefully.
100%. It is a breather right now, but it's really not helping anything. The cost of living is extremely high still. I mean, if our percentages were maybe 20% and not above 50, then we would literally say it's a breather all around. It's just a breather for right now, considering at the rate that our cost of living has been.
And you know, it's marginal numbers, right? I keyed when the repo rate was announced, and someone tweeted, David Goliath tweeted that, adulting means that you get excited that you'd be getting a 230 Rand off your bond.
Yes.
And it doesn't seem like it's a lot. I quickly went and also calculated how much I'll be getting back from it was also in the hundreds. But it doesn't seem a lot. But to what you were saying, if we had to do a list of all the creditors we own and all the debt that we carry as households, that 230 Rand that you are now, quote unquote, saving from your bond can actually come in quite handy when reassigned to another debt.
100%. And because remember, each debt has its own interest rate, right? And sometimes we pay the bare minimum on these debts, not because you don't want to pay it. It's because you can't afford it. You can't afford to pay additional. You can only afford to pay the minimum amount to ensure that you're not in arrears with your debt, right? And hence we are in a debt to income ratio issue. However, now with all these extra amounts that you will be saving, it's very crucial that where you have a high interest debt, don't overlook that debt. Work towards it to ensure every little cent that you have that you are currently saving now, put it there. You are used to not having this money that you're saving. Like you're also used to not utilizing it. Continue doing it like that, but prioritizing it and adding it to another repayment plan that can still assist you to ensure that you are still comfortable to live within your means when it comes to the cost of living.
Absolutely. Oh, living within our means, such a difficult. How do we avoid taking on new debt? You know, what is the trick there? Because it's a double-edged sword, right, being an adult, because you need to be responsible and you need to do everything that Usomile says you must do. But also at the same time, the other conversation we always have with adults is adults must carry debt. There's a degree of debt that comes with being an adult. But how do you balance that on the one hand, and how do you make sure in this moment you don't take on more debt than what you actually need?
You see, and I think you've answered it with this last part where you say you actually need. Avoiding to take new debt is when you actually sit down and you tighten your budget and you don't take unnecessary new debt because you just want to be comfortable. I feel as if we at a stage as South Africans where we want to be comfortable and we're scared of certain ways or not meeting our means when it comes to the cost of living, that the safest option is to accumulate more debt than tightening the existing debts that you have. And that is why we have such high percentages when it comes to the debt to income ratio, because now you are on the all I need is a 4,000 Rand personal loan so that I can be fine for the next 2 months type of situation. Whereas you don't need that. Tighten what you already have. Ensure that in the next 4 months, you focus on your budget. You avoid paying minimum. You avoid putting yourself in worsened situations, because as much as the interest rate is lower now, and you feel as if you'll pay back this 4,000 cheaper than you would have had taken back 2 years back, when it goes up again, it affects you, and now it's going to be higher, meaning now that new debt is more of a burden than what it was supposed to be when you initially took it.
Yeah.
You understand? That's why we keep on saying, avoid taking on new debt, tighten your budget, ensure that in all of this relief and this breather, there is a certain element that's going to assist you to breathe more. Having a financial, I don't want to say education or knowledge. Let's use knowledge. Having a financial knowledge when it comes to yourself is very important. Where you actually take yourself accountable of your financial state. Where now, even if you don't need a financial advisor like Somila from My Law, where you sit down and hold yourself accountable and say, is this budget realistic? Am I being realistic when it comes to my expenses versus my income?
You know, I want us to pause there, and then we'll come back on the other side and we'll look at our tendency to ignore our budgets. 061-410-4107 is our WhatsApp line. If you do have a question for Somila that you'd like maybe to get some clarity on regarding your household and personal debt, you are more than welcome to drop it into our WhatsApp.
Weeknights on S3 are anything but ordinary. BBC Primetime brings you the best of British television from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Open your mind to Life on Death Row, Thursdays at 9 p.m. and Resistance in a Hostile Environment, a 3-part documentary showcasing turning points which would go on to define race relations in the UK for a generation. Thursdays at 10 p.m. Wind down your weeknights with The Outlaws, Fridays at 9 p.m. and explore the world's most dangerous roads at 10 p.m. Channel your best entertainment with BBC Primetime, only on S3. Open up. Back-to-back champions, the Buccaneers, are only interested in lifting up their 3rd consecutive title. Meanwhile, Maroon and Gold, Stellies, want to ensure that black and white fans go to bed early. This is the MTN 8 final. Wafa Wafa. Catch the reigning champs, Orlando Pirates, up against Stellenbosch FC on Saturday, 5 October at 5:30 p.m. live on SABC 1 and SABC radio stations. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Congratulations to the lucky winners who have walked away with their share of 50,000 Rand from One Life. You still have one more chance to win 15,000 Rand tomorrow on SAFM. And all you have to do is enter online and you could be a lucky winner to get a call to play on the morning brief. Plus, you can also boost your 15,000 Rand winnings with an additional 2,000 Rand when you opt in for an obligation-free One Life life cover quote. One Life is a licensed FSP. T's and C's do apply. One Life, changing lives.
Arts, culture, and robust conversations with Bridget Masinga.
We are in conversation with Somila Kokoba, who's a department manager at My Law Legal, and they offer high caliber legal services and counsels for those of us who want to get rid of our debt burdens. 061-410-4107 is our WhatsApp line. 086-000-2032 is the number that you can call. Somila, before we even talk about how we tend to ignore the budget, right? Let's talk about something that you said. Paying the minimum payment is a no-no. A lot of people think that just paying the minimum payment is enough. And it's not.
It just prolongs the debt and it increases the amount of interest that is paid.
Okay.
That's the thing about the interest rate. Interest rate works on the amount that you are paying. So if you then are taking a loan of a 30% interest, and you're just paying, you're just like, I just don't want them to take legal actions against me, so I'm just going to pay whatever I have and not the agreed amount, right? You will still, the interest is still going to increase because you're not paying as per the repayment plan that you and that certain creditor.
Somila? Oh, we lost her for a second as we try to call her back. And I like that piece of advice, and I think it also extends to beyond just your credit card repayment, because a lot of people will just pay the minimal in their credit card and wonder why they never pay, get rid of the credit card with all of that high interest, because you're just paying the minimal. Okay, we've got Somila back. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, sorry about that. I
No,
don't
it's
know
okay.
what happened. I was saying that the minute you just pay the any amount that you have, it is still, the interest is still added, because remember, when you take out a certain loan, there is a contract and an agreement that you have that each and every month that you're going to be paying a certain amount, and that amount will then be interested in an interest rate that you had agreed upon with the creditor. Now, when you are just paying any amount, that interest is then added. Now, that means that by the time that you pay off that R4 that you have taken, you would have paid those people 2 or 3 times more the amount that you have taken. And now it goes back where we always say, if I feel as if I'm going around in circles when it comes to my debt.
Yeah.
Because you're not paying as per the repayment, you're just paying because you just want to keep it alive, or you don't want to be handed over. So it's important to avoid paying only the minimum.
Got you. Let's touch quickly on emergency funds. A lot of us don't have emergency funds because we can't even afford to keep, for a rainy day. But
I get you.
And things happen, then you have to dip into the household budget, which is already stretched. So how can we maybe give us a tip on how do we plan for the emergency fund, especially given our tight constraints?
You see, firstly, I believe as if that we South Africans are in debt, or just around the world. What causes people to be in debt is the unforeseen circumstances. Remember, we put budgets in place, and we work around incomes based on your expenses, right?
Yeah.
And now when an unforeseen circumstance comes, you then have to be taking things in other places, and now you have to get debt and all of that. And that accumulates interest and blah, 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 and the cycle goes on like that, right? Now, when it comes to emergency funds, it doesn't have to be your whole salary. It doesn't even have to be 50% or what. It just needs to be a certain amount that you can put aside for rainy days, right?
Okay.
Obviously, when as Milo, we're able to assist consumers professional financial advice, where we will then are able to look at your budget, look at your income, and say, okay, this amount maybe you can put aside, right? In cases like these, where now there's the petrol drop is going down, petrol price is going down, interest rates are going down. You mentioned now when we had the repo rate, and you did your calculations, and you had like 100 and something that you're saving. You were so used to spending that 100 and something within your home bond. Put it in your emergency funds. You each and every month, that money, it was money that you were never going to budget towards, because it was already allocated somewhere else.
Yeah.
Put that money to an emergency fund, because now it's money that's left over from a certain bill. Put that accumulates money that's within a place that you will not have access to use. Use that as a contingency plan for all these unforeseen circumstances.
That makes absolute sense. Samila, we have to leave it there for this afternoon, but I think, you've given us some sage advice and practical advice as well. As we move forward, she keeps emphasizing it's a breather period. It's not a period for us to now go crazy and go wild and live our best lives, but it is a breather period. And that's exactly what we'll take it as, because as they say, what goes down must come up, and vice versa at some point. That was Sumila Gogoba, Department Manager at Milo Legal. It is 2:30. We're going to take Madupi with the headline news, and then on the other side of this, we come back with Nalibali.
Very much, Bridget, and a very good afternoon. In your headlines this hour, KZN Premier Taminduli has announced the launch of the KZN Climate Change and Sustainability Council, aimed at addressing issues of climate change in the province. Genderlinks has lamented the decrease in the representation of women in South Africa's National Assembly in the 7th administration. And Rwanda is set to begin vaccine and therapeutic trials in the coming weeks as it battles its first outbreak of the highly infectious Marburg virus. Details of these and other stories coming up at 3.
The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga, Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m.
Greetings and welcome to another exciting episode of Nali Bali. Have you ever planted a seed and nurtured it through its early stages and ultimately picked the flower, fruit, or vegetable that you have watched grow? Getting involved in the garden will not only bring enormous satisfaction, you'll be surprised how good it makes you feel too. Spending time outdoor as a family, creating a garden that you will all enjoy will not only provide you with fresh food and flowers, but it will also encourage you to spend time outdoors instead of in front of the TV and on your cell phones. Today's story is called The Lovable Farmer, written by Natasha Simon. But before we listen to today's story, let's all get up and dance! Once there was a young farmer who lived in a land far away. Every day he worked hard tending his land and caring for his animals. As he worked on the farm, he sang his favorite songs, and as he cared for his animals, he told them soothing stories. Over time, nature and elements also came to listen too and loved the young farmer's songs and stories, and over time, they became the farmer's friends. One day while exploring in the forest for mushrooms, the farmer saw the chief's daughter, Nadia. She was having a picnic by the river with her friends and family. It was the first time he had seen her, and he was immediately mesmerized by her beauty.
Oh my gosh, wow! I really need to talk to her.
The farmer thought. Then Nadia started singing. It was a beautiful song that stopped the young farmer in his tracks. He couldn't bring himself to talk to her, so he just listened quietly as she sang. As the sun started to set, Nadia and her friends returned to the chief's grand home. The farmer walked back to his own little home, and as he walked, he spoke to nature and the elements who were always by his side.
Nature, elements, I saw such a beautiful girl and she has such a wonderful voice. I really wish I could meet her, but I don't know how to get her attention.
He sighed. Nature smiled at him and said,
"Don't worry, young farmer. The elements and I will help you win her heart."
The next time Nadia went to the river, Nature told the farmer to sing his own beautiful songs. The farmer sang with all his heart, and the wind carried his songs to Nadia. The farmer sang a funny song, a soothing song, a lonely song, and a happy song. The songs made Nadia laugh and cry. The farmer's singing was so moving that Nadia followed the sound of the voice until she found him. When they met, they talked, sang, and danced together. From then on, whenever Nadia went to the river, the farmer would be there waiting, and they would spend the day together. Love blossomed between them, and Nadia wanted nothing more than to marry the farmer. One day, the farmer went to the chief to ask for his daughter's hand in marriage. But the chief's face twisted in anger. He sent the farmer away, saying,
"I cannot possibly let my daughter marry a farmer, especially one as poor as you."
Heartbroken, the farmer returned to his land and shared his sorrows with nature and elements. Then the earth spoke up.
"Don't worry. We can easily fix this for you."
Suddenly the ground began to shake beneath the farmer's feet, and out of the earth came gold, silver, and precious gemstones. The pile of treasure grew until it lifted the farmer higher than his house. The farmer stood on top of the huge pile that was now even greater than the chief's riches. He shouted,
"Oh, thank you very much for helping me and for being my best friends. Now I can buy some fine clothes."
The farmer walked to the town where he used his newfound wealth to buy fine clothes and large chests to hold his treasure. Feeling confident, the farmer once again went to the chief. He gave the chief some of the chests filled with treasure.
Sir, come on, please now. I can take good care of your daughter Nadia and provide her with a life of comfort and happiness.
The farmer told the chief. The chief was astonished by the farmer's kindness and sudden wealth. He wanted to see the rest of the treasure for himself, so they all set off for the farmer's land. When they reached the farmer's beautiful land and the chief saw the sparkling treasure, a great glint appeared in his eyes. The chief wanted the treasure and the land for himself, so he returned to his guards and ordered,
Listen here, grab the farmer, tie him up and throw him into the river.
Nadia pleaded for his life, but the chief would not listen. But nature and elements saw what had happened and grew very angry at the treacherous chief. The earth shook the river banks so that the chief and his guards fell into the river. The water made a huge wave in the river and the chief and his bodyguards were carried far away and never seen again. The young farmer stood safe and dry next to the river, thankful for the power and friendship of nature and the elements.
Oh, nature and elements, thank you again for helping me,
he said. After mourning the loss of her father, Nadia married the young farmer and together they ruled the land. The people of the land were happy and thankful that the farmer and Nadia looked after them so well. And all nature and elements took care of farmer and his wife for the rest of their days. And so we come to the end of another Nali Bali story time. Today's story was called The Lovable Farmer, written by Natasha Simon. Did you know that reading and telling stories to children at home can help them do better at school? If you want free stories to read to your children or for your children to enjoy on their own, visit Nali Bali website www.nalibali.org or Mobi site www.nalibali.mobi. You will find stories in 11 South African languages, as well as tips for reading and sharing stories with your children to grow their potential. Also look out for the bilingual Nali Bali Reading for Enjoyment supplements with great children's stories and activities available in newspapers. Nali Bali, it starts with a story.
The world's best cooking show is finally here. MasterChef South Africa Season 5. You'll meet 20 talented home cooks from around Mzansi, Noma or Pumapi, and no matter your favorite dish, see if the chefs can handle the heat in the kitchen in a race to be crowned MasterChef South Africa. Every Saturday, 7:30 p.m. only on S3 Channel 193. MasterChef South Africa, the world's best cooking show, proudly sponsored by Pick n Pay.
Masandawana ladies want to rubber stamp their authority with maximum points to stay on the summit. The Copper Belt ladies want to fight with all they have to move away from the bottom half. This is the Hollywood Bet Super League. Witness the Mzansi Queens of the beautiful game. Mamelodi Sundowns Ladies FC versus Copperbelt Ladies FC on Saturday, 5 October at 11 a.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available everywhere for everyone, always on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga, Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m.
It's just gone 20 to 3 o'clock in case you were chasing the time, headed off somewhere. We are catching up now with the CEO of the Automotive Industry Development Center. And they are a subsidiary of the Gauteng Growth and Development Agency. Thabo Shinxani joins us now. How are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you, madam. How are you?
I'm great, thank you. I mean, I've given the mouthy title of AIDC, but you can expand for us in terms of who is AIDC Eastern Cape.
Thank you very much. Just a slight correction, though.
Yes.
I am Thabo Shenlane from the Eastern Cape AIDC.
Yes, I did say that.
Yeah, you said Gauteng earlier on. So there's two of them. Yeah,
okay, okay. I
Yeah.
thought I
So-
said the Automotive Industry Development Center, subsidiary of the Gauteng Growth and Development Agency.
Yeah, no, we're a subsidiary of ECDC in the Eastern Cape.
Aha, okay.
Yeah, so we are a provincial government entity
Mm-hmm.
that is tasked with assisting the province to retain its competitiveness in the automotive industry. So we report to ECDC. ECDC is our shareholder. ECDC reports obviously to the provincial government.
Okay.
So we are tasked to working with the OEMs, assisting suppliers, and making sure that our province retains its competitiveness in the automotive industry.
All right. And I guess that then speaks to the value proposition for the AIDC?
It does, certainly does. So most of the stuff that we do relates to us advising our provincial government on positioning itself in the automotive industry. So that's the value proposition we provide. We provide policy advice to them in the auto space. We also assist suppliers with competitiveness programs because we all know they have to remain globally competitive to be able to still export and supply the OEMs with the components.
Yeah.
We are intervening in the engineering skills development programs through our universities and TVET colleges here. And recently, because of the transition towards EVs, we've just finished the provincial EV strategy, which looks at supporting the province to transition itself towards manufacturing and production of electric cars.
Oh, wonderful. And now we know that the automotive sector is celebrating 100 years in SA. And this is 100 years since the first vehicle was assembled here in the Eastern Cape.
Absolutely. Ford was the first plant to be established here.
Oh, wow.
In 1924 in Gqeberha, yes.
Oh, wow. Wonderful. So tell me in terms of just preparing the automotive sector for, I guess, sustainability for another 100 years, but also, as you say, looking at new technological advancements, within the space.
Yes. Look, I mean, the first 100 years have been profound for the country. And because we are coastal province, I think one of the reasons why you would have a strong base of the auto sector in the Eastern Cape is because we export vehicles from our province. So the value proposition for the Eastern Cape starts there, right? So if we are continuing with exporting vehicles, we've got to accommodate the transition towards EVs, which means we've got to start institutionalizing manufacturing of EVs and the EV value chain within our province. Okay? So I guess the next 10 years is probably more crucial for us than the past 100 years on how we position the province to still retain its competitiveness. And I dare say, look, I mean, we've got 3 provinces that host the auto sector.
Yeah.
You need all 3 provinces to work in tandem to retain the automotive industry in the country.
Absolutely.
So this doesn't become necessarily a competition, but we have to complement all the work that Gauteng is doing in retaining the sector and all the work that KZN is doing in retaining the sector, all right? The Gauteng being the economic hub, obviously some of the OEMs and component suppliers would want to base themselves there. But if you talk about exporting, you then have to factor in the logistics infrastructure that we have and KZN has.
Yeah. And now AI, rather, I should say, AI is obviously changing the space and various spaces in quite dynamic ways. Are you riding this wave of change?
We have to accommodate everything that has got to do with the transition towards EVs, including artificial intelligence, right? So I think if you see how the structure of manufacturing goes, you've got to attract OEMs that are able to transition with the global demand. The challenges that we are currently facing in the sector that has been here since about 50, 100 years ago is that some of them haven't really accommodated the transition much quicker than others. You can see the emergence of the Chinese being the leaders in EV manufacturing.
Yeah.
which includes software development, which includes artificial intelligence and all other solutions that are IT-driven, right?
Mm-hmm.
So our biggest challenge now, I think, as a sector and as a country and as a province, is how do we crowd in EV manufacturing? How do we crowd in software value chain development within our space so that we do not, going forward, heavily rely on imports only, which impacts also on what we teach our kids at school, what kind of engineering courses are taught in the next coming 5 to 10 years, and what the industry is going to be looking like from the OEM side and from the component supplier side.
Absolutely. And I think, sorry, Tabo, yes, continue.
So most of the work that we're doing is accommodating that whole transition, as it were.
And I think, this segues us into my sort of final ask, and that is, of course, you guys have, or rather, from what I understand, you're a multi-stakeholder orientated organization, right? So
Absolutely.
How do you balance the interests of the various stakeholders, from industry players, government, and also obviously the local communities in and around where these operations and organizations are centered?
Yeah. Well, look, it's a tactical discussion. It's a technical discussion, really. Our objective is to link government to industry. What that means is we need to get our provincial government to understand what the needs of the industries are, right? And vice versa, we need to then help government to legislate and enabling policies to attract and retain industry. So if you look at an analogy of a sandwich, we're probably that polony sitting between two slices, as it were. So no day is the same, basically.
Yeah.
As we speak now, today we are hosting an expo for the aftermarket SMEs, which introduces the part where communities and panel beaters and auto body repairers are operating from.
Yeah.
So the work that we do is probably very slightly not engineering focused. It's more economics, it's more development focused, and it's more policy development, it's more research work. And then in that regard, we then participate in industry activities, like we're going to be attending the SA Auto Week from the 15th to the 18th of October in Cape Town, where we are taking the whole of our provincial government over to Cape Town to interface with the industry.
Wonderful.
So we've got to keep that going, and that is the only way we can sustain the industry as a country.
Wonderful. Thabo Shinxani, thank you so much for the time. And Thabo is, of course, with the AIDC Eastern Cape, running us through some of the work that they do within the automotive industry sector. It is approaching 10:02. We're going to take a quick break and then we come back and we wrap it up. And we're talking cybersecurity.
The Market Update, Monday to Thursday, 6 to 7 p.m.
Want to stay ahead of the financial game? Join us tonight from 6 to 7 p.m. for an insightful journey through the day's market developments, financial updates, and investment news. Tune in for your daily dose of financial intelligence as we navigate the twists and turns of the financial landscape with expert insights. Only on the SAFM Market Update.
SAFM Market Update with Jimmy Muyaha. Night Talk with Oliver Dixon.
When leaders need to account, we call on them. When society needs to debate, reflect, and advance, we're here to have the conversation. Join me, Oliver Dixon, on Night Talk every Monday to Thursday from 10 to 12 midnight.
You are listening to The Full Circle.
So this month we're observing Cyber Security Month, and of course we're wrapping up the show this afternoon by having a look at the effects that every single one of us in this digital, or rather how it affects every single one of us in this digital age. And we thought we'd plug into Dr. Tsweni, who is the head of Information and Cybersecurity Center at the CSIR, to help us navigate our behaviors and the things that we need to know around this conversation. How are you doing, Dr. Tsweni?
I'm doing very well, Bridget. I hope you are good.
I'm great, thank you. So the more technology advances, the more at risk we seem to be, ourselves, now even in the physical, but absolutely our personal data and personal information.
No, definitely. And the physical world and the digital world is sort of like now converging, where we find ourselves using technology most of the time in different spaces, but online, and that obviously creates benefits for us as people. We can connect easily, but at the same time that introduces various other risks. Nowadays we call even criminals, they take advantage of our use of technology, whether it's in banking, it's in health, it's in employment. People are after our data. As they say, data is the new oil, because they can just steal it and sell it and make easy money.
Absolutely. And we've seen a rise in, cyber attacks globally, targeting people's personal data. What is attributing to that?
Definitely. If you look, for example, just in Africa alone, the financial impact is almost about 18 billion, right?
Wow.
So if you look at that, that's the motivation for the criminals, because these data breaches, they can make them easy money. For instance, somebody can buy a ransomware toolkit for about 1,000 rand, but that can make them almost 100 million within one job, so to speak. When let's say they go and attack a company and they seek a ransom and the company pays. And some companies, unfortunately, do pay. We've seen, for example, in South Africa, almost about one company, they were asking for almost 200 million just for a data breach. So the motivation for a criminal is very high, and the impact also very high for us as consumers and users.
Wow. And by way of sophistication, I mean, is there also an increase in the sophistication of these cyber crimes and I guess all these technologies that people are using now to infiltrate corporates and individuals and institutions?
I think, sophistication, maybe I would say it depends, because one of the key things that happens is they rely on the lack of awareness from us as individuals, but also, if we can call it, digital illiteracy. Because generally, if you find many people will interact with the technology at a late stage, but without necessarily being aware about the risks that are involved, but also, issues that we call cyber hygiene. Many people don't behave accordingly when they are using, for example, technology. For example, we share our data with ease online. We post things that we are not supposed to post, and then criminals take advantage of that. But the other aspect, if you look at Africa just in general, there's also a lot of inequalities, and criminals take advantage of that. Just to give you one short example, nowadays, let's say in South Africa, there's a lot of high unemployment, right? Criminals take advantage of that to steal our data. For example, where they post jobs, fake jobs, if I can call it that. By posting fake jobs, we then send our CVs, we send our ID numbers to fake, maybe recruitment agencies, while they're stealing our data, but because they tap into our vulnerability of not being employed, then they take our data.
Yeah. You mentioned two things, digital illiteracy and cyber hygiene. Let's talk about that a little bit, because we're still trying to just get a grips. We were having a financial conversation at the beginning of the hour. We're still trying to get to grips with basic concepts like, financial literacy. Now you're wanting us to also get to grips with digital literacy.
Definitely, and I think all these things go hand in hand, Bridget, because, digital literacy teaches us, for example, how do we even protect our devices? If I can, you can ask your listeners, how many of them actually even change the password or the PIN codes of their phone? Some people keep them for long. One thing, how many people share them with ease with others? I see nowadays people give their children passwords to go and either log in onto their internet banking and stuff like that. That is hygiene that is not correct, because we don't share our toothbrush, but people will share, for example, passwords. And then when it comes to digital literacy, it's also about understanding what is happening on your device, who is using it, who do you give access to, the issues of privacy and the likes. It's very, very important.
Yeah. It's, you spoke about, when you started saying passwords, I heard passwords. I was going to say, I've run out of passwords, Doc. And then when you moved on to the phone, I thought, oh, okay, he's pointing a finger at me because I haven't changed my phone password in forever. So maybe it's time for me to do that. And obviously, we are vulnerable as just the average person, right? Because half of us, for instance, as you say, we've had the same password. It's probably easy to figure out. We don't have two-step verification on many things. We share passwords around. So how do we then circumvent this? How do we make it so that we are not as vulnerable as we currently are?
I think one of the key aspects of Bridget is what we call cybersecurity consciousness, right? They normally say people don't believe that they can be victims of cybercrime until they fall victims. I normally tell people this narrative that, cyber criminals, even if, let's say, you have an overdraft in your account, you're on a minus, cyber criminals will want to make your minus even look bigger. What do I mean by this is that there's no one who is immune, especially in the digital space, of being, breached or something like that. So whether you have money, you don't have money, there's no class in this particular environment. Hence, number one, you need to be conscious of that fact. Number two, we always have to think before we click, because sometimes people, when they're online, they are taken by emotions, and criminals are very good at psyching us up, where they send a story that you like, or they send the clothes that you like, so that you click on the wrong things and you give you information. They send competitions. People like free things.
Yeah.
Here's a competition from a particular shop. Click on this link, give us your information. And by that, they've taken your ID number and they sell this information, and your privacy has been breached. That is why we end up receiving a lot of scam calls on a daily basis, because we freely give our information away.
But now, Doc, where do we draw the line? I think, in our final moments, where do we draw the line so that we are not overly paranoid and, angst about these things? I think about the other day I was thinking, since Popia, we've received so many cold calls about things. And I'm always on the side of caution now. I don't respond. I don't take up the offer. Because in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, ooh, you trying to trap me into a scam. But sometimes it's legit. Even the communication we get from our banks, and everyone's still communicating with us digitally. And it becomes difficult to sort of filter what is real and what is not real.
No, definitely. I think in the environment where we live in, it's always not that easy. But as I said, the consciousness part is very, very important. When you are in the digital space, it's always important to deal with it without the emotions. Obviously, if, let's say, you have ordered something from a particular shop, you are expecting a call, you are able to take, but also as you are in the call or you are responding to whatever, it's important to understand what information is being required from me. Generally, a bank will never ask you to give them a PIN code. A bank will never ask you to transfer money. So there are certain tricks that criminals would use. And the bank will never rush you. Generally, if you see, for example, people whose WhatsApps have been hacked, then somebody says, hey, Bridget, I'm Bridget, I'm here, and give me some money quick. It's a scam. So every time when there's emotions, you must know that there's a problem. So I think that's where we draw the line.
All righty. That was Dr. Tsweni, Head of Information and Cybersecurity Center at the CSIR. And that is how we wrap up today. John is still in the building on the National Pulse today between 3 and 6 o'clock. From myself and my team, we will see you tomorrow, inshallah, God willing. Have a great day.
The top stories at 3 o'clock. Another former Steinhoff boss is sentenced, and Rwanda to begin vaccine trials for the Marburg virus. A very good afternoon. Ke Mudupima Khalemele with the news. Former Steinhoff CFO Benjamin Lachranzi has been sentenced to 10 years direct imprisonment by the Specialized Commercial Crimes Court in Pretoria. 5 years of that sentence have been suspended on condition that he's not found guilty of fraud and that he provides evidence to the state in any further criminal case against directors, officers and employees of the Steinhoff Group. Between November and December 2016, Lachranzi and the then CEO Marcus Joster, who is now deceased, defrauded Steinhoff South Africa of over 367 million rand. Hawks spokesperson Katlego Mogale.
On the instruction of Jooste, Legrandsie created documentations of transactions that supported the fraudulent transaction used to inflate and falsify the annual financial statements of the Steinhoff Group for financial year 2016. After investigations by the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, Legrandsie was fined 2 million for the role he played in the Steinhoff at work transaction and barred from holding office in a public company for 10 years.
KZN Premier Tamin Duli has announced the launch of the KZN Climate Change and Sustainability Council aimed at addressing issues of climate change in the province. The announcement comes after the province was recently hit by heavy snowstorms that shut down the Van Rienerspass.